And then I'm going to bring on our panel members, Daniel, Alan, and Elva. And we're going to learn about a really interesting platform that that Alan created. But before we get to Alan and Daniel, I really want to give a big heartfelt thank you to Elva. Elva was on one of our discussions. Do you remember what discussion that was, Elva? Was it the one on ageism? Oh, here, unmute yourself.
I don't really remember. I've been on 2 or 3, and the last one I was on was the one about fair split, which I thought was really interesting.
I want to say you were on, it was a discussion on ageism that we had, and it was a really thought-provoking discussion. And one of the things that we talked about was sort of changing the minds of the younger generation about what it is to grow old, you know, what it's like. And I think Elva shared, she's like, well, I'm part of this program where I'm connected to these college students. And she started talking about it. And, you know, we've been doing a lot of these digital discussions. The program's called Big and Mini. After that event, I got all these emails and everybody's like, hey, do you have the link to that small and big or the mini and old, you know, like, and I was like, holy cow, this is something that we've got to dive into deeper because it's clearly struck a chord with the audience. So thank you, Elva. And give us, you're a participant in this Big and Mini program. And so just before we dive into the platform itself, can you just give us a little bit about your background? And
Sure. Yeah, I'm 75 years old. I've lived in Arlington, Texas for the last 40 years. Ever since I retired from the corporate world, I was vice president of strategic procurement for a computer services company over in Dallas. Was my last job. When I retired from there in 2011, I got involved with the aging community. I started out by being a board member on the Funeral Consumers Alliance, which is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3 that just educates people about what funerals should cost and how they work and your options at end of life. So I did that, but then I started a group here called Ambassadors for Aging Well. And we have about 535 local members. And we were meeting in person for the last 6 years. But with COVID, we had to, you know, we now do Zoom meetings like everybody else. But I am now still on the community board of the Tarrant County Adult Protective Services, which is like Child Protective Services, but it's for adults that have been exploited or neglected or abused. And I'm a past chair of the Tarrant County Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council and some other organizations like that. So aging, one of my key things is to let everybody know there's no shame in aging, regardless of what you see in magazines or on TV. And it's kind of, we need to speak up when we hear ageist comments, just because a lot of people don't even know they're doing it. And some of us even participate without understanding how harmful it can be. So anyway, I teach that every decade of life has its pluses and minuses. You know, you may think that you'd like to be 11 years old again, but if you remember back, you might think, well, I didn't have to go to work and, you know, didn't have any responsibilities, but somebody's hanging over you, telling you what you can and can't do all the time. So anyway, every decade has its pluses and minuses, and it goes all the way up. The research shows that the decade of 70s and even 80s is the happiest decade of life for most people. So anyway, thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Oh, great. Yeah. So, I mean, the interesting thing is that you've got a background in the field of aging as a volunteer and a worker, and now you know you're a consumer, and
Right.
and and many of us in this field, we've sort of gone through the same progression. It's sort of like you know you're going through your career, your life, where you're counseling other people, and then all of a sudden you wake up one morning and it's sort of like, whoa, I've got to, now I'm actually utilizing the services that I was recommending to people so before.
Yes.
So this is great, Elva, and thank you again for introducing us to our next two panel members. And I'm going to start with Alan, because Alan, I understand that you're the one that dreamed up this platform, Big and Mini, correct?
Yeah, I am one of the co-founders, but it really is about the community. So thank you for those words, Alva and Steve, and thanks for this opportunity.
Great. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to dive in to, I think you've got a PowerPoint. You're going to dive in and kind of walk us through how Big and Mini was started and what it does and how people can participate. And so what I would say to the audience is we want to make this an engaging conversation about this platform, but also about intergenerational connections. So make sure, as thoughts or comments or questions come to you, use the Q&A button and ask questions. And then when Alan and Daniel get through their PowerPoint, we will we can open it up and have a discussion. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds perfect. So what I'm planning to do today is just I'll introduce Daniel in a sec. Alva's already introduced herself, and then I'll talk a little bit about the program, and then we'll have Alva and Daniel wrap us up at the end and talk about their experience within the program. So let me go ahead and share the screen, and feel free to send chats or questions at any time. Cool. So I'm one of the co-founders of Big and Mini, which is a platform that connects youth and seniors to combat loneliness and bridge the generation gap. So kind of vocabulary, a big is usually like an older adult, and then a mini is a younger adult. So that's Big and Mini. So I'm Alan, co-founder and CEO. There's me with my loving grandma and my brother. So we heard from Elva already, so I guess we can hear from her at the end. And then, so I guess Elva is a big in the Big and Mini program. We'll hear her talk about that later at the end of the presentation, which should be real quick because I want to keep this really conversational and interactive. But now let's hear from Daniel real fast. So Daniel, if you could just introduce yourself. Daniel's a mini in the program, and he's actually Elva's match.
Yeah, so hey everyone. As Alan said, I'm Elva's mini. I've been paired up with her since I guess late March or early April of this year of 2020, and it's really been great. I'm a sophomore at the Catholic University of America in Washington D.C., but I'm actually here in my hometown in Southlake, Texas, because my school's having online classes, and I heard about Big and Mini from Alan, who's actually been a long friend since middle school. And yeah, he presented the idea to me during quarantine, and I thought it was a fantastic idea, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Daniel. And we'll be hearing more from them in a few moments. But yeah, let's get into it. So yeah, this is Daniel and Elva on the Today Show, which was pretty exciting. So just a sneak peek of what's to come. So I guess real quick, I'll just talk about like how we got started. So you may be looking at me like, who's this young kid? You started this organization. And it's true, I'm in college. I'm at the University of Texas at Austin, and that's when I had the idea for this. It was when COVID hit in early April. I went from Austin surrounded by all my friends to being back at home a little more isolated. And I feel like a lot of people around the world may be feeling the creeping sensation of loneliness. And given this feeling, I was like, I want to do something to help. So I saw that I felt this, but I saw that tons of people around the nation around the world were feeling even worse, whether it was youth or seniors. I noticed it was a universal problem. And I honestly, I did some research online too, Google Trends and different validation techniques to kind of understand whether or not it's truly a problem. And it is. And then looking at the stats, like loneliness is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes per day, and like the huge cost on Medicare, like $6 billion per year. That's the financial burden of loneliness. Looking at those problems and then really thinking about how much I valued my relationship with my own grandparents and how much I gained from those experiences with elders. So that was kind of the impetus for founding Big and Mini, a platform that connects youth and seniors and just brings us together. So yeah, that was in early April. And yeah, here's a little more about the problem. But I guess we kind of all know loneliness is a huge problem. It's a universal issue, and that's the solution we came up with. And ultimately, it's all about forming bonds and making connections across generations. And there you have a little screenshot of our website. I'll give the link at the end of the presentation, and you all can go check it out. But yeah, so we just started building a web platform in early April, and I'll get into how it works real fast. So you kind of go onto our website and you register. The link is bigandmini.org, but I'll mention that again later. And then Bigs and Minis do this, and they fill out their profile. And the profile involves like, why do you want to be a part of the program? What are your interests? And then you complete a quick training, which involves reading a document and taking a quiz. And then we match you. So when we do the matching, that means we give the time, we give the meeting link. Yeah, we basically do everything, and it's all facilitated within the web platform that we all coded from scratch. So I'll talk about the other founders in a moment, but basically we just started coding in early April, and we started building this platform from scratch that had integrated video calling with Jitsi, integrated chat with Twilio, and then yeah, and then the ongoing calls. Let's see if I. Let me know if you all can't hear.
The hardest part of quarantine for me is.
Can you all hear that? You're good?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, last time no one could hear anything.
Kind of feeling lonelier than I normally would, because at least at school I was always like around my friends. It's just kind of like nice to be able to connect with someone and kind of get my mind off of everything that's going on. I lost my great uncle in April, and it devastated me because he didn't die from COVID, but he died alone. He was all alone because nobody was really allowed to see him. I think Connie has given me an outlet to be able to talk to someone and just make them feel like they're not alone.
Yeah, so that's actually one of our minis. That's Nicole. And those are the stories that kind of inspire us to keep going and keep doing this sort of thing. And we'll hear from Daniel and Alva soon too, but there's kind of three main components that make up what Big and Mini is. Of course, first, it's the volunteer conversationalists. It's the Bigs and Minis who talk to each other for one-on-one calls, and whether it's weekly or however often they talk, they're integral to our platform. And then, of course, there's also engagement metric tracking, and I'll touch on that in a sec too. But basically, organizations can track how often their residents are calling or their students are calling in the Big and Mini platform. But most importantly, what we're all about is a community. We're about a group of young and old people who may look different, may come from different places, but really work together to share stories and understand that every generation has something valuable to offer. And I think that's at the heart of what we do, what we're all about. Because a lot of groups, I think it's kind of lost to them, and they have these young people volunteering to talk to the seniors who are like receiving the service. But for us, it's a mutually beneficial relationship. It's about that conversation between the two sides and the mutual benefit gained from these conversations of the young and old. So at the heart of all what we do, it's all about community. But on top of that, we have all this tech that we've kind of created. So we have, of course, the individual platform where you just sign up and you go on for one-on-one calls. We also do kind of engagement tracking for organizations. So this is like a senior living facility, maybe wanting to track their residents who are taking part in the program and see how often they're calling. how it's affecting them, or like a school who has who have students volunteering. And finally, like custom software, the idea of matching people to people, I think for us is really interesting and furthers our mission. So this is like matching employees to retirees. That's one instance, or like those with disabilities to those without. So those are two projects we're kind of working on, and kind of our third offering. And yeah, this is what it looks like in terms of the engagement tracking. And then I guess we started in early April. And when we started, we were literally just like a one-page website and a Google form and an idea. And we had no people on board. And we really had to try hard to get those first people on board, because it was just like us three founders with not many connections and no real idea. But now we have over 2,000 volunteers signed up in 6 months, and they're from 50 states and 22 countries, which is pretty amazing. We've made over 800 matches in this 6-month period. So for us, it's been really incredible. And the stories we hear about our big and mini matches are just really inspiring. So yeah, we've also had quite a few news features. The Houston Chronicle was our kind of first big one that was really, that really made a difference and helped us get our first few bigs and minis on board. But then, yeah, we've had 40 plus. So we've been on places like the Today Show, like Parade Magazine. So for us, it's all about sharing a story of hope. Because our three founders, it's me, a peer of mine at UT Austin, a DT, and my younger brother, actually, Anthony, who's a senior in high school. And it's a story of three teenagers who felt like they wanted to make a difference, didn't know if they could, and they ended up doing it. And why I say that is because I think for us, it's about the fact that no matter who you are, where you're from, what age you are, you can make a difference in people's lives. So that's our story, and that's what we've been sharing. And I think that also comes from the bigs and minis on the platform. No matter what age you are, you can sign up to be a big or a mini, and you can make a difference in someone else's life. And that's what we're all about. And we've gained a little recognition. It's only been a few months, but we've gotten the Encore.org Gen to Gen Fellowship, the Launchpad Fellowship, a few awards from Points of Light. So great to see the validation for that. And these are the three co-founders, a peer of mine at AT and my younger brother, and of course, our team, really important as well. Team working behind the scenes, so like code, to write the newsletter and do other stuff. So yeah, and then also the advisors have been really important. One of the first ones, Dr. Fingerman, was really instrumental. It was amazing. We just cold emailed her. Like when I said we started out with very few connections, we really had no connections in the aging space, us three founders. And we had to forge these connections. And Dr. Fingerman, she's like this incredible professor at UT. She's in like working on so many projects. She still took the time to respond to our email, and she helped us recruit our kind of first 100 minis and bigs. And then also professors across, yeah, faculty and people at different schools like UT Arlington across the nation. I think, yeah, support and people wanting to do good during this time. It's a hard time, but people wanting to do good has been pretty amazing to see. So with that, I'll let Elva and Daniel have a word. I think they said already they've been meeting since April, but I'll not say anymore. I'll let them handle it. So yeah.
So yeah, Alan, again, thanks for the introduction. And actually, I forgot to mention this in my original intro, but I'm also part of the communications team for Big and Mini, so I work on the newsletter and things like that. But yeah, anyway, as Alan said, I've been matched with Alva since about April, and we talk once a week, every Saturday morning, and it's been great. I mean, I remember before at Alva, really the only people who I could say were my friends in the senior community were my grandparents. But now that I've been talking with Elva and getting to know her, I can firmly say that we've truly developed a strong friendship in the intergenerational or intragenerational friendship. And, obviously there's a lot of differences and some interests or ideas or viewpoints between the two of us. We might have disagreements about, political views or faith or things like that. But quite obviously, we still find tons and tons of things to talk about. We still have tons of interests in common. For example, we're both adventurous eaters, and I like suggesting some of the Peruvian cuisine from my cultural heritage to Elva, and she likes trying it. And we also have some of the similar music interests. For example, I'm into lots of music from the late 40s, 50s, early 60s. Considered quote unquote oldies, but Elva obviously likes a lot of that music as well. So we've been able to talk about that, and I think maybe some of the younger adults might go into Big and Mini thinking that they're the ones doing all the helping towards the big, but in reality, the bigs help the minis just as much as the minis help the bigs. And I definitely think that's can be shown through the relationship that Elva and I have. And so, Elva, yeah, if you have some words to say.
Okay. When Daniel and I were first matched, Daniel's 19 years old. I'm 75, and you might think, what would a 75-year-old female have to talk about with a 19-year-old male student? And so we didn't know what to expect when we first met, but from our very first call, all of those fears were laid aside because it was easy, it wasn't awkward at all, and we found that we have a lot of things to talk about. Daniel mentioned briefly politics and religion, and it's very interesting to me that we're backwards of what you might expect, because Daniel is more conservative politically and I'm more liberal. Religious-wise, he's pretty religious in the Catholic faith, and I'm not religious. And so, but it's not that we can't talk about those things, because we have and we do. It's not, there are no subjects that are barred, but once you kind of know each other's stance on those things, there's no use beating it into the ground, of course. I have really enjoyed learning about Peru, and because his mother is from Peru, she's a pediatric oncologist at Cook's Children's Hospital in Fort Worth. And Daniel has spent summers in Peru with his cousins and other relatives down there. And so I've really enjoyed hearing what he has to say about Peru. And it has caused me to have a real interest in Peru as well. And I tried some of the recipes that he likes that his mother makes. One was called lomo saltado. And I looked, after he mentioned that, I looked online just to see if there was a recipe. And there sure was, no problem to find that. Then there was also pollo, meaning chicken saltado instead of beef. And I tried that one. I liked that one. There was another recipe called papas rellenas. I love chiles rellenos living here in Texas, so I thought I would try papas rellenas, but Daniel said, well, that's probably one of the least favorite things that my mother has made that I didn't particularly like, but I tried it anyway and learned that he was correct. I'll take his advice next time.
Tried to warn you.
But I'm glad I tried it anyway. And so we both have an interest in football, of all things, known as soccer here in the United States. But when the World Cup was played back in 2018, somehow I got hooked into that, and I watched nearly every match of the World Cup, and it was so fun to see all of the different countries and who the players are. In fact, I don't know if I started to text you the other night, Daniel, that Cristiano Ronaldo has been diagnosed with COVID. Did you see that?
I'm not sure if I got your text, but I did see the news.
Yeah.
And yeah, he wasn't able to play in the most recent game, which is a
So
shame.
he's one of the top 2 or 3 players in the world, and so we both like soccer. Daniel particularly follows the Peruvian national team, and I have watched some Amazon videos, documentaries, one of which was called Eternity. And I suggest that you might want to look that up if you have access to Amazon Prime Video. It was free documentary called Eternity, and it's about a happily married couple that are in their 80s that live in the highlands of Peru, the Andes, and they're very isolated. And the whole documentary is about what it takes for them to just survive on their own as they're aging, and how hard it is. And of course, that lifestyle has nothing to do with Daniel's family or anything. I'm sure they live in relatively luxury, I'm guessing. I don't know what's, but Spanish language, I've been saying for years that I was going to do Duolingo lessons, and I would start and stop and start and stop. But because Daniel is bilingual, I have now a 180-day consecutive day streak on Duolingo app, where I've met my learning goals for 180 some days in a row. Daniel has an interest in Roman history, which was never an interest of mine until it was interesting to him. And he's been collecting coins, old Roman coins and figurines from way back then. And so he got me kind of interested also in ancient Roman history. So I bought Roman History for Dummies book and watched a documentary called Carthage, and have enjoyed learning about the Stoics and the Epicureans and about Marcus Aurelius and Cato the Younger and Cato the Elder and blah, blah. I saw a PBS documentary recently called Hacking Your Mind, and it talked about implicit biases that some of us have that we don't even know we have, but there was a website that's hosted by Harvard, and it's free, and you can go on there and take all these tests and see where your implicit biases might be. So on one of our Saturday morning calls, Daniel and I took a few minutes to go to that Harvard website and just, we did one of the implicit bias tests that was on there, and we'll probably do some more. But anyway, those are just a few of the topics that we have found that interest us both. And it seems like there's something new and different every Saturday. So I look forward every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. Daniel and I have a video chat, and of course he travels some, and if there's a conflict, it's no big deal to skip a week if we have to. It hasn't happened very often, but it's just informal, and I really enjoy. I love him to death. I mean, he is just the best human being that you can imagine. He's the kind of university student that any parent would be proud to have as their son. So his parents have done a great job, and he is who he is, and
Thank you for your kind
it's
words.
really fun. So
I'm
that's
really
about
glad I
all
met
I
you.
have to say.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Alva.
Sure.
Yeah, it's truly, really, it's so awesome for me to see you guys like this, and our bigs and minis so happy. So thanks for those amazing words. And yeah. So ultimately, yeah, Alva and Daniel know what we're all about is coming together and kind of trying to eradicate loneliness. So that's our ultimate mission. We are a nonprofit, and because we really believe that first and foremost, we're here to do good. So yeah, thanks for those words. And I think that's all I had Finally, if you're curious, you can check out our website. It's just bigandmini.org. Also just search Big and Mini, I think. And it comes up. So yeah, that's all I had. We want to keep this conversational, so feel
Yeah.
free to ask any questions.
Man, this is that was great, guys, and I'm glad my camera was off, because there was a couple of times where I was getting teared up hearing the relationship that the two of you have developed, and just thinking about, you know, the hundreds of thousands of people, that both kids and elders, that are isolated and lonely and need somebody to talk to, and especially in this time. It's your rapid, you clearly this is a rapid startup, and the fact that you've executed so well on this platform and making these connections is really admirable. And I saw in chat, and I agree, you know, it's I, I love your choice, and so do people in the audience, of Big and Mini. You know, it's a very non-ageist, using non-ageist language and celebrating elderhood as being big, you know, is it's a big deal, you know, um so this is great. So let's dive into some of the questions that have come in via typing. Okay, but what I would also say to the audience, if you would like to make a question or comment live on audio, just raise your hand and we'll weave those in to some of these as we begin our discussion with the audience. So first, Diane Watson has a couple of questions, comments here. Her first is, how do you provide security and privacy to assure the older big that this is a safe platform? Elder abuse and fraud are a concern of many older people and their children. Is there a cost to sign up?
No, it's completely free to sign up. We started to do good, and we'll never charge anything for individuals to sign up and get matched, because we're here to help. In terms of security, that's something we thought a lot about, and we think a lot about. There's a few ways we go about that. First is the training. So everyone that signs on has to go through a little questionnaire with background check information, and also training, which involves like questions you should be asking, information you should not be giving out. So training is the first kind of step with the background check questionnaire. And then also the fact that we integrated video calling and everything into our platform. So when you sign up, you don't have to share your email or phone number with anyone to chat. You just sign up, you have an account, you log in, and then we built a chat into the website. So you can send text or whatever to your big or mini without them knowing your phone number or anything, because it's all facilitated through the platform. And same thing goes for video calling. It's all through the video platform, and you don't have to create an account, or you have to create an account to go log in. But to do video calling, it's integrated. So you don't have to download anything else. It's all integrated into the website. So that's how we deal with safety and everything.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, it's great to hear that you're taking steps in that direction. And Elva had mentioned, you know, part of her volunteerism has been in adult protective services and things of that nature. I think the important thing that we all know is the bad guys, they're going to figure out a way to break any system, you know, and it's, you know, the key is that if we can be savvy consumers, if we can be cautious and ask the right questions, and when something doesn't feel right, reach out to somebody else. Like, don't, you know, and this is not on exclusive to Big and Mini, but it's sort of, you know, if somebody's knocking on your door and asking some wacky questions, you know, it's sort of like, put them on pause and go call your next door neighbor and say, what do you think? Or call your son or daughter. But sounds like you guys have taken some good steps in that direction, and hopefully the bad guys aren't going to get through, because that would be a shame. You'd have to be an absolute idiot to be a bad guy and jump in on a nonprofit platform like this. let's see. Diane brings up another question is, how are people communicating with each other? Expect not everyone has devices. Do you have a way of connecting big and minis when devices are not available?
Yeah, so I guess I think you have to have like a phone to do it. So that's one way you can also communicate is through calling. We've built that into our platform. I guess, yeah, I guess that's a possibility. We're working on a program that maybe could supply devices to people. And I know people also sometimes don't have internet or whatnot. So yeah, that's something that's happening.
Yeah, and I see a few questions along this line. A lot of the people in our audience are like managers of senior living communities or nonprofits with, or villages with a lot of older adults, and they're intrigued by this concept. It's sort of like, hey, this would be great if I could ask my members to jump in on this platform. So do you get, or have you had some experience with sort of like advocates, maybe somebody who works in a senior living building who is sort of supporting making the connection in the Big and Mini program, and the older adult may not ever log into your website. Somebody's advocating for them, and now they're talking on the phone with their mini.
Yeah, exactly. We have like activity directors helping out and making that connection. So we're working with some senior living facilities where we'll just have the kind of activity directors sign up, and then they facilitate the interaction. They like pass the device around every few days or whatever it is.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, exactly.
Cool. Another question, and I think all of you guys could sort of comment on this either personally or anecdotally, is how has the relationship been helpful to the minis? And I know, Daniel, you shared some things, but maybe elaborate a little bit more on some of the success stories from the mini point of view in engaging with elders. And actually, I know I'm babbling here, but with your matching system, especially like a college student, it's like you could see where you might get, let's say, a college student who's studying engineering and connect them with, a retired engineer, and sort of sharing career advice and things of that nature.
Yeah, that's exactly true. And we have like English. I know we have like an English major matched with a writer, like post author. So yeah, exactly. But yeah, Daniel, do you want to, or Elva, comment on that?
Well, I was just thinking that Alan, his major in college is electrical engineering, and his dad is an electrical engineering professor at University of Texas, Arlington. So when you said engineer, I said, yeah. But Alan's, obviously his talent goes way beyond just engineering to create this whole thing, to code it from scratch. And they seem to just pop out PowerPoints, with no, just like so easily, where it takes me a whole day or 2 days to do one.
It takes us forever too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think as Alan brought up, we try to match people based on interests. So there's an example of a mutually, I guess, beneficial relationship. And as I also mentioned, I personally, and perhaps other minis, maybe went into this idea thinking like that, they're the ones doing all the helping. But as Alan brought up and shared some statistics, young people suffer from loneliness too. And, especially with this quarantine. And I know, again, me personally, and I'm sure lots of other minis or college students, they couldn't go back to school. They couldn't see your friends. Me personally, I haven't seen my friends in a while. This quarantine ended my relationship. And so it's, the loneliness factor, it doesn't just affect seniors. It for sure affects minis and younger adults too. And
yeah, and that's one thing that I really like, that Alan did not present this as minis helping the big.
Right, exactly.
It's mutual in two ways. And especially because research shows that the loneliest generation is those 18 to 24-year-olds, if you read the research. But everybody is, it's a pandemic of its own, loneliness. That's why the UK appointed a minister of loneliness.
Huh.
Uh, and they're studying it and trying to take action to reduce loneliness.
Yeah.
And it's not just the UK, but it's across many countries. So
This is a good question. Is it possible for a big to be matched with more than one mini or vice versa?
Yeah, definitely. Basically, the requirement when signing up is that you go through one call with one big or mini. And we leave it like up to the big and mini match to continue, or like how often to call and the cadence of everything. So it's all about you having the freedom to create a meaningful connection on your own. And in terms of adding another match, that's a feature we actually recently built just a few weeks ago, where you can just go onto your dashboard and you can request another match. So yeah, adding another match is super easy.
and I'll just say that when I joined, I expected just to try it out because these professors from UT Arlington had called me and said, would you recommend this to the members of the group you lead? Well, I don't recommend anything to them until I've tried it or vetted it somewhat. So I thought, well, I'm going to sign up, but I'm just going to do it for a month and see how it goes. And if it's okay, then I'll tell the members about it. But I did not intend to stick with it. But after I met Daniel and we've had this great thing going, there's no way that that I would quit now, because it's just been wonderful.
Elva, I'm curious, do you have any children or grandchildren?
I do. I have my youngest grandchild is 8 years old and she lives in Plano. That's about 50 miles from my house. And so unfortunately, since March, I have been playing it really conservative and, you know, don't go anywhere I don't have to go. I picked up my groceries this morning curbside that I ordered online. And but I really miss being with my family. And Thanksgiving, we're not doing Thanksgiving. I'm not going. I don't know. My son in Plano usually hosts Thanksgiving dinner at his house, but I won't be going. The thought of being intubated is just too scary to me to have a hard plastic thing thrust down my throat.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Anyway.
Let's see. A question again, sort of revolving around how people are matched. So just the process is, you know, both sides of the big and the mini, they're sharing parts of their background. And then is this sort of like an AI matching, or do you guys go in and manually try to match people?
So I guess it's a little of both. So we manually go through every profile to make sure everything's safe, as well as we have like the background check questions. But in terms of the actual matching process, we ask for bigs and minis to tell us their interests. So that's taken into consideration when the matching happens. And it's not really AI, but it is algorithmic. So it takes into account the keywords and the availability. So that was also important to us, is the availability matching, because for me, I hated having to schedule the time of like a meeting or something. So we just decided to schedule it for everyone.
Okay, great. And then Sarah Burson says, how do you go about recruiting older adults to sign up? I think one of the things is sort of doing outreaches like this, and you guys have had a ton of publicity around this. Again, refresh us on the numbers of how many bigs and minis are in the system right now.
Yeah, so in total we have around 2,000. I think we do have a little more, we have more minis than bigs by like 100 or 200. So it's around like 800 bigs and 1,200 minis. In terms of how we get them, I'm sure Elva, you know well, like faculty, reaching out to university faculty is one way. So being a student, that's really helpful because faculty immediately recognize that. And that's the same for the mini side. Like Daniel, we had a lot of students from the Catholic University of America sign up because like we had a link on their website and everything. So that's one way. Of course, press is another way, as Steve was saying. And then partnerships with like aging organizations that reach out, and word of mouth, where people just hear about us. We're working with like Age of Central Texas. It's a nonprofit in Texas. And they just send us bigs who need minis to be matched. So yeah, those three
Great.
ways.
And I know, because I know our audience, which are, very influential in the senior community. So the best way for them to sort of reach out to you all in terms of a partnership. So like if somebody is part of a program or a village or a community where they might have a bunch of bigs that are interested, what's the easiest, most streamlined way for them to reach out to you all?
Yeah, I think emailing us. I had our email earlier. It's contact@bigandmini.org.
And I'll share that in the follow-up.
Yeah, or on our website, you can hit the organizations tab and like fill out the form.
Okay.
So yeah.
Great. Oh, wow. Bunch of questions from my good friend, Craig Clark, who's an incredible individual. And let's see, we addressed the talk on Zoom, telephone, or something else. How long do the talks usually last? Like, do you have any metrics on that? I know we've got Daniel and Elva on, but do you have any sort of concept how long those are lasting?
Yeah, we have a post-call survey, so we know how long those are going for. Usually, it's like it can range from 30 minutes to 2 hours, but we really don't set any boundaries for that. So I think, yeah, average would be like 40 minutes, maybe an hour. So yeah.
And then you talked about this earlier, but the both parties know that if it's not a good match or for any reason, they don't need to sort of continue with the connection.
Yeah, we just leave it up to them. So it's just like we set up the first call, and then if you want to continue, you continue. If not, up to you. And they just communicate with each other through chat. But usually we see they just continue chatting.
Let's see. Let's see. Jen Gruber says, I absolutely love this concept and so impressed by what you've accomplished, Alan. Have you had similar interest from potential bigs and minis who want to be matched, or do you get more? Do you get more requests from one group or the other?
Yeah, no, there's definitely more minis than bigs by a little bit.
We love that. You hear that, guys in the audience? This is something fantastic that we need to celebrate, is that young people actually want to connect with older adults. So let's balance that seesaw.
For sure.
Let's see, for Elva, I think you addressed this. What was the main motivation for you signing up for the program? Did you have any concerns or hesitations? And I think you addressed that pretty well. Are the big and mini selected? What challenge? Yeah, I think we talked about matching. Have you seen the phone connections gelled? I imagine more senses the better. Yeah, so probably you're right, is that the Zoom, if you can get somebody, the big and mini connecting on Zoom, it's probably more personal than a phone call. And at least building that initial relationship via a platform like this versus talking on the phone.
Yeah, I think we found that people like the video calls a little more because it's like you can see the other person's face and it's not just some voice. But I do know that some bigs and minis just use the phone because it's easier. Some start with the phone call and then move on to video call. So yeah.
This is again in our effort to get more bigs on your pile there. Susan Gilbert from a senior center in Prince William County said that the senior centers are closed, and so they've got this virtual senior center format, and they're asking permission to put the link for big and mini on your website. And obviously, you don't have any problems with that, correct?
Oh no, that'd be awesome. Yeah, we do. We have a ton of minis waiting to be, or we have some extra minis waiting to be matched. So that'd be much appreciated.
And Marzita says, how many different countries and languages are taking part? Do you have any data on that?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, we have 22 countries. So I know we have matches. I've they've sent in like videos talking about the relationship. There's one in Jordan, a big in Jordan matched with a mini in Michigan. I know there's like Australia and I want to say like New Jersey. I know there's like Mexico and Texas. In terms of languages, yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure about.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, super cool.
Cool. Yeah.
I know you were offering Spanish matches. I
Yeah.
don't know what the response has been, but
Yeah, I've been working a bit on that, and so the purpose would be to find, people who only speak Spanish who'd be able to use our platform. And we found a few minis who'd be, interested, but we actually haven't found or haven't been able to get any bigs who only speak Spanish to use our platform. So
All right, guys, that's another challenge. Let's help these folks with that. I know that there's many, ethnic groups out there, and this is a challenge that a lot of people that we see face in the pre-COVID world was, oh, my mom wants to go to an adult day program, but there's nobody there who speaks Spanish or what have you. And you can see where when we break down the walls, this is a great opportunity to sort of connect generations. And you could see where this could also become sort of a tutoring opportunity. Again, if there's a student who may be learning to speak Spanish or a language, connecting them to a big, and they can practice their dialogue, over their calls. This is a great question from Kim High. Is there an age limit to being a mini? Meaning, how young could a mini be?
Yeah, we try to keep our minis above age 18. That's kind
smart.
of the goal.
Yeah, I can see where there's value in sort of connecting, middle school or high school students, but I think having a responsible or somewhat responsible college student, I think the 18 and up is a great place to start. And then you could see as this branches out where it could be something in elementary, middle school, and high schools.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of college. There's like what, 20 million college students this fall. Yep. There's a lot of them.
Have you run into any technological difficulties with your platform?
I don't know, Alva and Daniel, have y'all run into anything?
no, we haven't. You guys told me when we first started, you told me about Jitsi Meet, JITSI Meet. I'd never heard of that before, but it is super easy and free and open source. And so Daniel and I usually use Jitsi, even though I have a paid Zoom account and we could use Zoom, but Jitsi is really easy and it works every time. So we've had no problems with technology, which is another thing. I mean, some of these stereotypes that we have about each other, older and younger, I consider myself to be pretty computer savvy, but nothing like these guys are. But for a 75-year-old lady, I am I know more than a lot of seniors about technology. But you don't have to know anything to use Jitsi Meet or Zoom. It's super easy, of course.
We've got a handful of questions. I'm going to try to get through them as quickly as can. We're about 5 minutes to the hour. You guys okay hanging on for a couple of minutes and get through these? And then again, we'll share the recording, we'll share contact info, and hopefully some additional relationships can flourish. But Liz Tupper is talking about, sometimes it's hard for grandchildren and grandparents to come up with things to talk about, which is, again, a great reason for college students to be involved. But do you give sort of conversation starter tips and things of that nature?
Yeah, that's something we implemented in the training. So we realized that that's something maybe people would want, is these conversation starters. So that's in the training, everyone has to read them. But also what we found is people have more to talk about than they would think.
Yep.
Like I'm sure Elva and Daniel did not expect to both be interested in talking about many of the things that they did. But I think that's what we find with a lot of the matches, is that we have more in common than we really think we do.
And before our first call, I did do a little bit of prep work by looking for icebreaker questions because I thought we would need that perhaps, but we didn't. I never used those. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, same here. Never used it. That natural. but it is there to use if people need it.
Yeah,
That's great.
you run out of something to talk about.
I don't know if this is a request or what, but Sherry says, will you humor me with a jingle to promote Big and Mini? You know, I could see that coming down the path. And Sherry, if you're a jingle writer, just reach out to Alan, and you know, maybe that's something that you can pull off. Sarah Bresson says, why do you think there's more minis than bigs? I would say that the founder, being familiar with the college side of the equation, is probably why. You know, I think if this was founded on the big side, we'd probably be in a situation where we're trying to get college students. But I think that's the beauty of this platform, and the origin and the way that you've started it, with the motivated college students sort of weighting down the seesaw a little bit more. Any accommodations for disabilities, hearing impairment? This is from Marzita Rivera.
Yeah, I think, so we actually, it's interesting, we have another separate platform called the FAM program that connects those with disabilities to those without. So like we're really accommodating of it.
Wait, so you have a sister platform with
Yeah,
disabilities?
we have, like, if you go on our website, it's there as well. It's called the FAM program. It's one of the tabs. And we started it. It's also started by another college student whose younger brother had autism, I think, approached us, and they were like, wow, this is a wonderful platform matching young and old. Can we do the same for my brother and those like him? And we were like, of course, of course we want to be a part of that. So we brought her on board, and she's leading that program.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah.
Man, that's great. Eileen Wilkerson says, ever use letter writing? The old school pen pal thing. I don't know if that's a comment or just an observation, but I think once the relationship is formed, then the big and mini sort of dictate the preferences for communication. Am I correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Craig Clark says, would it be okay for a 16 or 17-year-old to do this if they wanted to? I mean, is that a possibility?
Actually, so our hard rule is like age 16.
Okay.
So yeah, that would be okay.
Okay, but the preference is 18 and above, which I think is a great way to do this. And then the last question that I've got on my list here, I'm trying to kind of read it. It's a long one here. That what are you doing in this quarantine with everybody is 6 feet between big and mini, can bridge the gap of the elderly and young, blah, blah, blah. Check out. Oh, okay. So this is more
check out my website.
Yeah. So this is great. Well, guys, man, hats off to you for just, really changing the world and making it a better place. And I know you're going to get an outpouring of support from our community. And anytime you want to come back on here as you add on new features, or if there's, things that you'd like to share, we are your fans and would love to see this be even bigger than it is. So.
Well, we've loved being here. Thanks for everyone's questions and everything, and thank you, Daniel and Elva. It's all about the bigs and minis, lifting up our platform. So, yeah, thanks so much.
Cool. All right.
It was fun. See you later.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay.